Hello and welcome to the APW. I'm here with the wonderful Paul Draper, who has been doing a few session tracks with us today. Spooky Action, your new album, which was released 11th of August, is that correct?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking the majority of the tracks nearly didn't make it to the light of day, if you know what I mean? Did they?
It's a long story to Spooky Action and me finally becoming a solo artist, because when I left Mansun in 2003, I went over and lived in Monaco for a while, doing a record with Skin from Skunk Anansie.
Oh, yeah.
And then I came back and we had so many unreleased Mansun tracks. I mean, literally 30 maybe, and I put together a box set of them. And suddenly 2 years of my time had gone by, and then the head of Parlophone, Miles, would call me in regularly, have you got your demos for the album? You got your demos, and it was like, it was the age of the Strokes and this, that and the other, and I don't know, I didn't feel I had a solo artist in me. And I had my studio in Acton by that point, in my production room, so I got all the songs that I'd been working on for the Spooky Action of the noughties version, which never happened, and I archived them all off my Pro Tools rig and put them on a load of DVD-Rs, and forgot about them, put them on my caddy with all my other CDs and forgot about them. And then I did writing and producing work, and I ran my studio pretty much as a commercial venture. And then I'd produced an album there that had got a bit of critical acclaim. I think got nominated for the Welsh Music Prize and won something in the Prog Awards and stuff. And then that's when people started saying to me, "Oh, this, are you ever going to do this solo album?" This is probably about 4 years ago or something like that. And so when it sort of dawned on me that I wasn't going to produce another album for another artist, but I was actually going to produce my old album that I never finished, I went looking for my DVD-Rs. And my studio engineer, Ben, I'm like, Ben, have you seen my my
spindle?
Yeah, my spindle with all my DVD-Rs on it, and I've backed everything up, and he's like, yeah, I know, I just took some blank ones home, I wanted to record Match of the Day. He goes, but I couldn't do it, they were DVD-Rs and not RWs.
Yeah.
I go, right, so you can't record. Yeah, that's quite handy, that, Ben, because my entire album that I started is back. All the Pro Tools sessions are backed up on it. He's like, oh, okay, I'll bring it back. So about 6 months later, he managed to bring it back, and we unarchived it and went back and found our 2005 Pro Tools sessions that we'd abandoned, and they were still there. But if I'd have archived it on DVD-RWs, it would have just been a Tottenham versus Arsenal game, because I know he's a gooner, so it survived.
What was it like? Obviously you've done producing before, but actually producing yourself and going over your old stuff, were you quite harsh on yourself? Were you like, oh, actually?
No, I mean, first thing I would say, when I first did it, I have not been like a frontman or a vocalist for a long time, although I'd been carrying on working in music and in my studio, writing and producing for other artists. I just sort of disappeared as a performer, if you like. And I couldn't get my head around it, how I was going to do it. I knew I would have to produce it. Well, didn't have any budget to bring in someone else, so I'd have to do it and listen it back to it, and a lot of head scratching, and started working out what tracks I wanted on it and what worked together. And the way I looked at it was, this is a project from the past that I had, and my role in this is the producer.
Okay.
So I'm going to produce the previous me from some other time ago, and then just sing on it at the end and see if I can get my head around that. The singing bit was the weirdest thing to do.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I did have a great team and a great ears. If anyone's done production, even if you're in the role of the producer, or you get the production credit, you want a team of people around you who can just say that lyric's not great, or you need to do that vocal again, and it's better. So I've got
a good perspective as a
yeah.
as a great thing.
I'm always seeking people's thoughts on, you know, I'll run off a monitor mix and I have a trusted circle.
Yeah.
I'll send, what about this track? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. We've got that and then it's like I'll send it to a certain group of people. Go, that chorus lyric isn't good enough, or your voice is too Tony Hadley. You know what? Nothing wrong with Tony.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Tony.
Massive fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love loads of early Spandau stuff. But I just want to sound like Johnny Rotten. But I end up sounding a bit Tony Hadley sometimes. So yeah, you know, I've got my. I can police the music, but that's my difficult thing, is policing my own voice. You know, I can get it's the character of the voice.
Yeah.
Which character am I in this? And everyone says to me, "Oh, just do your whispery voice." Like, everyone likes that one. Just do the whisper, and then, but I end up like, oh, you know, and it's oh no, pull it back, man, pull it back. And I've got this mental block where I think if I sing harder and louder, then you're trying harder, but it's actually not the case sometimes. So it's like that's one of my big things. That, like literally, at one point when I was in the studio, I built a coolometer. And it was just a needle on it, like that. It was just a cardboard box with a needle.
Right.
We would just, you know, from red, and we'd just move the needle, you know, and just. So that's it. You just have to have an inbuilt quality control. But when you're doing your own stuff, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough. So I did get a lot of people, trusted circles and opinions, and even then we were working to a deadline in the end, and. You know, I mean, I've made half a dozen commercial albums now and released them or more, but I would not, you know, I don't lie in bed and not sleeping at night once it's done. Whereas I did, you know, listen back to like Attack of the Great Lantern 06, the first Mansun albums. It's like you know, I want to edit that there, and you have to abandon it. It's
you have to let things go.
So
and the you know, the formats back then meant you had to let it go.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like the. You know, when I listen to Spooky Action, I'm like, oh, I should have changed that lyric. You know, that lyric's going to change. That's there. Oh, I should have put that track on. I should have put that track on the EP. It's better than that one. And it's like, it'll kill you, chew you up. Because you have to give everything to it. I mean, I when I finished my album, I had 9 months worth of unopened mail, you know, and it's like I just it album and nothing, you know. It's like, it just consumes,
it's a lot
and then you lose perspective because I covered. I had a rhythm section with me, and I got a guest, Catherine, who was the anchoress, to come in and play piano on one or two songs, but you know, played the instruments myself essentially and sang it. And so I got no problems sitting and messing around and editing the instruments, the guitars, and getting them the way I want to sound them and stuff like that. But the vocal, you know, I'm not a fan of my own vocal, if you like. I think it's too thin. I would like to, you know, I'll get that every now and again in a track, you know, but it's... But it always ends up.
I would disagree with you on that. I think your vocal's great. But I think the other thing people do forget is you do obviously know your equipment and that, and guitars as well. Just trying to think. We were touching on this earlier, off mic and off camera, but I can remember Chad having, you know, 2 amps. You ran 2 amps, like an AC30 and a Blues Breaker.
Yes.
And you were running like a Marshall.
I had a Marshall stack to start with, but
was it a 900 at the time? Back in really early.
Really early on. Yeah, and then I moved on to I think a JTM 45.
Yeah.
And I'm over my Marshall stage now.
Are you a Fender?
Yeah. Towards the end of Mansun, I moved on to a Bassman, a 4x10.
Oh right, okay,
Bassman.
Cool.
That became
but still running Les
now.
Pauls?
Yeah, I got my Les Pauls by the second album, 6. I was on stage, I was playing a Rickenbacker 325.
Ah, okay.
And I had to abandon that because it just kept feeding back too much.
Right, okay.
So
what, back to the Les Pauls again?
Yeah, I think Les Pauls was my stock thing, but I you know, you get bored of gear. It's nothing wrong with the gear.
Yeah.
I got a great sound out of my Les Paul and my Marshall back in the day, and it was like, you know, it gives a real rock edge, you know, like, you know, but because I'm listening.
The 90s were the 900s to me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But it was, you know, listening back to our because we're curating the whole of the Mansun catalogue now. So we're literally in EMI's archive, digitising everything, and there's just so many demos and outtakes. And listening to my guitar sounds, and I'm just thinking, oh God, of course I used to go to this rock club called the Tiv in Buckley in North Wales every Saturday and like listen to Metallica and Pearl Jam and you know Pop Will Eat Itself and like that, you know, a lot of, you know, Nirvana and of course that's, you know, that's where Mansun come from, that F, and I'm still doing it now on my acoustic. I'll just sliding Fs around, you know. Anyway, there's an easy way out of that. There's an easy cop out of that. But yeah, it's that was my starting point, and the my Marshall and Les Paul combo, you know. But I moved away from it, you know.
So what did you move to on Spooky Action for that stuff?
Okay, now Spooky Action, there was a lot of guitars and amp combos used on that, and I'll tell you what amps we used. I use a 90s AC30. I have, which is a good sounding one. I have a you can, if you listen to the record, like say you take the first track, Don't Poke the Bear, on the chorus where the big guitar comes in, that throaty boxy sound, that's my AC30. Okay.
Wow, okay.
But where I'm doing the little funky riff,
did you go to a Strat?
No. I actually played it on. You see, that was done on that riff was my AC30 and a 60s Epiphone Riviera, which I was gonna sell until I plugged it in and realised, wow, I just sound like Brian Wilson or the Beach Boys like when I play this machine. It's like so I can't ever get rid of it, that one. Although I did sell my vintage Casino, Epiphone Casino. I've just bought a one of the John Lennon reissues because I want to take it out on the road with me and play it live, and my old 67 Casino was too rickety.
What other amps did you have on the album?
Okay, so in terms of the amps, when I went for like the funky thing, I would flip over to my Fender Twin. And just use a bit of a spring reverb in the amp so you can hear that. In addition to that, we used a lot of Fender Deluxe reverb. I've got one of them because John Lennon, man, he moved over to that for the White Album, bit of Revolver action on there, and that's a great album. That's a great amplifier. Some people think of it as like a cheap twin, but it's not. It's not an AC30. And it's not a twin. To me, AC30 and a twin, they're just different worlds, and the Deluxe is somewhere in the middle. And then my fourth amp that I've used is a 4x10, you know, Fender Bassman, which has got some.
Is that what you're using on the road?
No, on the road I took out a Black Star amp actually. I took out a Black Star. I mean, I spoke to the guys at Black Star and they're like, "Do you want to try this amp out? This artisan amp?" And I tried it.
I've seen they're great with supporting people.
Brilliant, like, and they were like, "We'll get this." I was like, "This sounds great." And they're like,
so, what did you use to kind of merge the tone and get the tone right for headwise? What Black Star did you go for?
It was Artisan 30 amp combo. And literally, I plugged it in the rehearsals, got a sound that was vaguely overdriven, and that was it. It was literally plug in and play.
Are you doing a lot of pedal pushing with that?
I didn't even have one pedal for my tour.
Really?
So it was...
wow.
Although we've just made our live album...
Tuner, you would have hoped.
Yeah, we've just... I got tuner, I got tuner. That didn't work sometimes. But we recorded our show at the Scala, and... we're going to sell that on the February and March tour, vinyl. We're going to sell it in vinyl. It's quite controversial with the Mansun fans, so we're going to release it as like, you know, digital or all like that as well. Yeah. But we just thought it'd be like a memento to start with. So you can hear we're generating quite a lot of sounds, but I was playing a lot of acoustic guitar. So I say half of my set is acoustic guitar, and then I'm flipping to, and I was playing a USA Fender Special Run 72 Tele Deluxe, which is new, about 2 years old. Yeah. And I love it. It just sounds like, you know, that you're in James Brown's band around 1972. You could be in Sly and the Family Stone. It's such an amazing guitar. But yeah, so live I used the Black Star, but we'd got in with Black Star and they'd said to me, "Come and try this amp out, you'll really like it." That was sort of post the album. So it's not on the album as such, but I'm using that as my live my live thing. So that's my broad spectrum of amps that I'm using, and I will use different ones in different parts of songs. But I've also got a Vibrachamp, a Fender Vibrachamp.
Yeah.
Amazing little amp. Absolutely love that. That's great.
When did you move? When did you start Kitchen Studios?
Okay, the Kitchen was my studio. I started in 2008. After Mansun split in 2003, there was I went all day for a bit, and then I did a couple of. I was working over in Monaco with Skin doing her solo album, Fake Chemical State, and then came back and we had about 30 Mansun unreleased tracks that I put together in a box set. And then that took a couple of years to do that. And then I started demoing Spooky Action at home, and that was messing around with that for about 6 months. And after that, I'd gone up to meet an old friend of mine, Hugh Padgham, record producer. Talked about before, Hugh, and he was owning Stanley House in Acton, which is a famous old production facility with 13 rooms in there. And he's like, "Get a room in here, man." And it was like, I just fancied it. I'm a gearhead, I'm a studio head, and it was like, I want this. And then it grew into a more of a commercial facility where we had. Like we were listening to Savages before. I mean, I remember them being in, and Pixie Lott was in, and who else did we have?
So a nice variety then.
Oh yeah, it was all major label stuff.
Was the studio built around a console originally?
No. My setup, if you want to call it the kitchen, has moved. It started off in Chester, and eventually ended up in a kitchen in Stanley House. That's why it's called the kitchen. But it's not very portable because part of it's a piano, and like it takes 5 people in a van to move it. But at the kitchen, I started off originally with a very small TLA audio tube desk. Just as and prior to that, I had a Mackie 32x8.
Oh, right, okay.
I only used it for monitoring, essentially. It was, actually, I did a lot of the mixes for Manson's Kleptomania, all the unreleased tapes. I mean, we didn't do mixes as such, but we just brought the tracks up, and I mixed them on the Mackie with Mike Hunter. Who was Manson's old engineer, and we just showed you where we left them, when the band split up. And so I did do some mixing on that Mackie 32x8, and I got some good work out of it. But I moved over then to the small TLA tube desk because I've got a lot of external mic pre's.
Okay, so being a nerd myself, what have you got in the studio?
Oh man, see, this is it. You see, now in the kitchen we can record a full drum kit, but after the TLA, I realised I'm a mic pre freak. So
it's an easy thing to do.
It's
very easy. It's a very expensive hobby. Yeah,
it's expensive, man. But them days when you sit there like AB and an API 512 and a Neve 1073. I can't decide, man. It's like, people think you're mad.
You're not mad at all.
No, yeah. So eventually, I bought basically a Neve 8816 as my, the hub of my studio, if you like. It's not a desk as such. It's a summing mixer. Yeah, it's a summing mixer. So I moved to not having a board at all, but a summing mixer, a Neve summing mixer. But I could still record because my entire studio's patched into 2 Bantam racks. So we basically I had 2 Focusrites in is it with a 428, the stereo one with the 4-band EQ, which was sold a few years ago. Like I think it's the 428, ISA 428, which was the best one.
Yes, because that was the Rupert Neve.
Yeah, the one he designed from the desk, the first one. The blue and the yellow one. And that was my workhorse for years. I loved that.
Yeah.
Then I had an Avalon 737 with a compressor on it, like the big hip-hop, what all the hip-hop guys use with an 87, the Neumann U87. And then I started getting into my lunchbox gear. So I've got a pair of API 512s, which are great. Because I'm a massive Prince fan, so he recorded all his greatest albums on an API desk at Sunset Sound in LA. So I've got my Oberheim OB6 synth, the Dave Smith reissue.
Yeah.
plugged into my API pre's, and I'm there, man. I'm 1999. You know, it's like living out a fantasy.
I did. I don't think people realise, as soon as Paul came in, we were just talking lots of studio stuff before, and one of the questions I asked was, "I love your snare sound on this new album."
On the new album.
What did you do?
Okay, right.
Talking about Prince.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, you know, it's like I'm a recording artist. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna put it that way, I'm not a singer-songwriter, and I'm not a record producer. But from a very early age, I've just been into the whole recording process. So I'm obsessed with detail and things like this. So when you get a Mansun record, we'd spend like 2 days replicating a snare drum sound from a David Bowie record in 1972. The A&R men would just be coming in despair, and it's like, you know, no artist would do this. And it's like, well, it's 20 years on, and I'm like, you know,
still doing it.
Still doing it. So, and you know, I'll argue with anyone that it is. If you're a recording artist, I love
hearing that.
The stuff. Gear. Most people, you know, and I had this told me loads of times. Real artists will just come out with you and just use the gear that's there. Why? I want to use old gear from youngs ago. I mean, we've got so much mad gear, and so anyway, yeah. So, being a huge fan of Prince, I love the snare drum off an LM1 drum machine, you know. I mean, it's my all-time favourite snare sound. So I have a great sample of a detuned LM1, and I just stick that under you know, using slate trigger. Yeah, you know, and that's one of my things. I'll have a drum tracks, a sequential circuits drum tracks, boomy kick, but I think it's mixed with like a bit of an 808 kick, because we've got like a boomy kick. But sometimes we'll put like an NS10 sub on the front, and you get very similar results. Yeah. I would say my entirety of my solo album has a Linn LM1 just sitting under the snare. I think I'd probably say every track, and it just, you know, it's just, I don't know, that's just I'm just living out my boyhood fantasy, you know. I've got a Linn drum machine on every track, and nobody knows. You know, it'd be my dream to. I had a Linn drum machine, but not the LM1, and it wasn't as good. But I'm loving. I'm working on my second album now. And I'm working a lot with the sequential circuits drum tracks, which is just phenomenal. You know, if you listen to all them great Depeche Mode records, Violate, you know, Peak Mode, you know, that's
just great stuff.
Yeah. So
okay, taking you back a little bit here. So
I didn't tell you all about my mic pre's.
Oh yeah, go on. Yeah,
okay,
go on.
So I've got I got a couple of 1073s Neves, which are beautiful. You know, it does what it says on the tin. They're beautiful clear at the top. Yeah. Beautiful bottom end. You got your API. I love the punch, the upper middle thing, and those Prince records. Just you can tell they're on an API. They're beautiful.
Killer. Absolutely killer.
You know, if you listen to a Kate Bush record, they're beautifully done and all like that. But I've got a Chandler Valve Red mic pre, the original Abbey Road Valve pre's that they had on the red desks, which is just phenomenal. The character of it is phenomenal, and I mean, I did a vocal and sort of A-B'd it with the Neve one. It's like, oh my god, you know, it's like a, you know, I haven't put everything through this red mic pre now, you know, even you know, and I've also got a couple of TG2s or TG1s, which is the latter day Abbey Road desk, the TG desk that the Beatles recorded Abbey Road on, and then Dark Side of the Moon was done on. I've got 2 channels of that, which is phenomenal. The EQ on it is just phenomenal, and so I use them a lot. The way I would describe them is the bottom end is beautiful, like a Neve, probably even fuller. The top end's fuzzier. It's not as clear as a Neve, but because the digital world, that's a beautiful positive. Yeah. So if you listen to Abbey Road, which I think is one of the greatest sounding records of all time, that's the sound of a TG mic pre's that I think. So that's my full collection really, and I've also got the I've got another mic pre which is connected into. I've got the red mic, the which is the U Valve 47. reissue that Chandler, Abbey Road have just done, and that again is with a red mic pre built in. It's like proprietary with it. So I've got a couple of them, and it's so my collection of mic pre's is nice, although I'm after a couple of Telefunken V76s.
Yeah.
That's you know,
Next little
yeah.
play.
You just never stop with this stuff.
No.
It's like, because then when I get that, then it's like, okay, now I can sound like the Stones. Yeah, that's next on my list. I think a couple of old Telefunken pre's.
So taking you back, and I think from what I can remember, with Six, that was as a Mansun album, that was pretty much the band in recording live in the studio. You said it was Olympic, is that right, with Spike?
Yeah, I co-produced it with Mark Stent, Spike.
Yeah.
He's obviously one of the world's biggest mixers and produced some great albums, you know, produced Oasis, one of the Oasis albums and all that stuff. And my brief going into that was, we want to make a guitar record.
Yeah.
But with, you know,
with
a twist.
Yeah. Where did you, because obviously going from like, I want to make a guitar record. So what can you remember a lot about the recording of Attack?
Yeah.
Where was that?
The first album, Attack, or Six, the second one?
Attack.
Okay, the first one, Attack the Grey Lantern, we did at Parr Street.
That was Parr Street.
Yeah, in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it's weird because we're listening through. There's
a lot of production on it.
Yeah.
I think it works so well.
You know, Manson died. You know, the last couple of albums being fed through the music industry system and battered one way or another. And I just think, why didn't you just send us back to Parr Street?
Yeah.
And we just would give you another one of them albums, but you know, it's like you're at the behest of the record companies and stuff.
Was the album built up of lots of little EPs? Was that right, or was it recorded and written?
What happened is, I think over an 18-month period from when we signed to Parlophone until the album coming out, we were on tour supporting people. And when we went on tour, we were in the studio, and I had a lot of songs then, Yeah. And I got a good songwriting role with Wide Open Space, Disgusting, Naked Twister, Manson's Only Love Song, Dark Mavis. Technically, the first half of that's really interesting. And I'd add part of the Chad Who Loved Me, the like. Was
Spike on some of that?
Spike mixed Wide Open Space, yeah.
Yeah.
Who
was producing?
We were talking about had a DB on the chorus on the Master Fader while it's going to half inch. You know?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going. There's loads of that on Fleetwood Mac records here in the 70s. You know, but I mean, you know, you can automate it.
So who was producing then?
I mean, it was me and Ronnie Stone really.
Okay.
Ronnie Stone was the engineer who engineered for Gil Norton. So he'd done. He engineered a lot of I think maybe all three of the first Pixies albums, Surfer Rosa and Doolittle and all that, and then I think he'd done a lot of the Smiths records as well. Like I remember Ronnie telling me he'd sitting in a booth in Parr Street with Johnny Marr's AC30,
right,
trying to time that, you know, from How Soon Is Now, and of course he was timing the tremolo on the AC30, and let's stop, rewind the tape, drop it in, and that was just blasting out in his ear. It was like only one of the greatest guitar tones in the history of guitar music, you know what I mean? So Ronnie was great to us, really. He was really my mentor, and he took me under his wing, and you know, he saw I was like a studio person, you know what I mean? We just got right into it, man. We just dragged the Leslie out of there, and it's easy because the first Manson EP now is being reissued on vinyl, you know, and it's like the fans have collected them and that, and listening back to it, it's very naive, and you can see our musical journey from being just rock, you know, to Attack of the Grey Lantern over that 18-month period.
And Attack wasn't live in the studio; it was all layered, and that was the approach of it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say again that's my Prince influence in that. You know, I knew how he worked. You know, start with a click, put drums down, build it, layer it. You know, so it's very much a studio-based album. Although, you know, like the hidden track, the Lyrical Train Spotter, we did that in a, you know, just we played that as bands, you know. But then I would overdub a lot and edit a lot, and try things out. Like we're just going through the tapes now for the box set, which is going to be announced in February, of Attack of the Great Lantern. And there's a hip hop version of Dark Mavis.
Oh, is it?
Like,
Oh wow!
with me, and then there's Stripper Vicar in a Cockney accent.
Oh my god! I'm gonna have to check this out.
And then there's a track. There was a. But I'm not saying the name of the engineer, but he was. We were in one day, and Ronnie wasn't there, and we were with a different engineer, and we'd had a B-side called "Rebel Without a Quilt."
Okay.
And I'd recorded it. Very, Bacharach-esque style, just laid back with like a little drum machine and me on piano and that, and gotta find the rebel within, and it was on the tape, and then I recorded a different version, a more rocky version that went out as on one of the EPs. And we only ever kept the A side from the EPs to go on the album, So there's masses of Mansun material. There's like 100 odd songs, Wow. A lot of the fans know, but if you don't know, there's a lot to sift through, and these reissues they're doing and stuff, and on Spotify and what have you. So I was with this engineer, and he said, I said, I've got this new song, and he's like, okay, well, I'll just record over this then. I'm like, no, don't record over it. He goes, honestly, no one will be interested in it. It's just this early version of Rebel Without a Quilt. And I was like, right, well, can you just record it onto a DAT before we did? Put it onto a DAT like that, and then we recorded Wide Open Space over it on the tape.
Right, okay.
So Ampex 456. But because we archived it on the DAT, 20 years later, we are now putting that on this thing that doesn't exist anywhere, only on this one DAT, as a completely different drum machine and piano version of Rebel Without a Quilt, which now we're all going, that's amazing, they should have been on the album, and no one's ever heard it.
That's amazing. That's so good.
We've got Disgusting with different vocal takes, and we've got big jam sessions of us doing like jazz odysseys with the sax player. just that, it was a crazy times, and it was a great album to make that, but we put a lot of songs at that and really picked it out, because obviously it had like a vague conceptual thing to it, but it was like a comedy concept album, so keeping some sort of narrative in it and getting the best songs together was difficult, and I think we wasted a lot of good songs on the EPs, but we got there in the end and knocked the Spice Girls and Blur off number one, so
absolutely,
and we're still talking about it now, so it can't have been all that bad,
No. Spooky Action Tour coming up in the new year. What are the dates?
I'm playing, basically, it's a week after the 21st anniversary of Grey Lantern.
And you're doing something special for that, I hear.
Yeah. So we had to wait for loads of legal issues, man. As Paul McCartney said, it got really heavy towards the end of the Beatles. I got a bit heavy towards the end of Manson. So finally, it's all been resolved, and all the old band members signed off on it and all like that, which I was stunned. I thought some of them wouldn't even do it. And they're doing a real fantastic box set of 5.1 mix of Attack the Grey Lantern, BBC sessions, all these outtakes I'm talking about. We got concert footage and all sorts of stuff in a box set. That's coming out, and obviously we'll do it properly on vinyl, on 180 gram vinyl. There's big demand.
You're playing the whole of Attack for this tour?
Yeah.
So
what we did is we finally got that through. So I don't want to go out and just be a nostalgia act or be Manson anymore. I mean, I'm still mates with the drummer Andy. But so we could go out as Manson, if we wanted to, but I genuinely don't want to. It's it's there, it's done, it's boxed off, and so I'm going to go on and do my set of Spooky Action, play for an hour or so.
Which I love the album. It sounds really
thanks,
great.
Really, thanks a lot. And I mean, even if you're not a fan of Manson or mine, you can check it out on Spotify these days, which is great. You know what I mean? So I'm picking up like new people who are getting into it. So we're going to do my full solo show, and then I'm going to come off. We're not going to have sport act, and then I'm going to come off, and for the 21st anniversary of Grey Lantern, we're just going to play it from start to finish.
Amazing.
So I won't, soil my solo set by throwing Manson stuff, because I did a couple of Manson tracks. I did Disgusting and I Can Only Disappoint You off Little Kicks in my last tour, but I won't this time. So I'm just going to do my own whole solo act, which is a bit like I started off with 3 B-sides on the last tour from my solo EPs.
Yeah.
It's anything to be obtuse, but so this time, so I'm doing that, and then and instead of doing an encore or I'm just gonna play Attack of the Grey Lantern as the encore.
Brilliant.
And then the people will be able to hear my solo stuff and that, and then they can do their reissue things. So that's my way of moving forward.
That's great. That's superb, and I think the fans are going to absolutely love it and embrace all of it.
You know, I hope so. Yeah, I think fans will come from either angle. I think there's a lot of people who are just coming to see me do my spooky action thing, and they'll get that tagged on the end of it. I think there's and a big thing for me is to reconnect with Mansun. It had such a massive fan base, and is reconnecting with people because I want them to come and hear my solo stuff now. You know, so absolutely. I don't want to be a nostalgia thing, so I'm doing my new album, and that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm just doing Attack of the Grey Lantern as the encore. Yeah. So we haven't heavily marketed it but. It's still my gig, but a good treat for people, you know. I think watching that and then being able to buy it on vinyl, because I know the vinyl's been going up for like 160, 180 quid, you know. And it's, so we want to get that reissued so people can get it at a reasonable price, you know. It's so yeah, we've got a lot of stuff moving forward, you know, regarding representing the Mansun stuff. I'm moving forward with my solo career, so I'm busy.
That's great, Paul. That's really good to hear. And thank you ever so much.
Thanks for having me in. It's been brilliant. Cool.